The Adventures of Batman.
Welcoming you to the new adventures of Batman.
Welcome to episode number 34 of BATMANIMATION, a Batman on Film podcast, where we talk about, discuss, break down, analyze, whatever you want to call it, the animated adventures of Batman, be it on TV or on the big screen or on straight to DVD or whatever, home video. Is that what it is now, Patrick Johnson? How you doing, sir? You're back for another episode here. I guess it's all just what, just home entertain, home straight. What do you? I mean,
digital streaming is all I can.
You can, you stream now. You still have Blu-ray, but it's kind of like home entertainment, whatever. So
yeah,
if it's animated Batman, we'll talk about it. How about that? So
yeah, that works.
Yeah. All right. In this case, we're going back to the 1990s and on television, and we're going to talk about a episode from the new Batman Adventures, which was to me it's all Batman the Animated Series. How do you look at this incarnation of the whole thing?
I'm pretty much the same. It was, to me, it felt like a facelift. For better or worse than BTAS, and I always call it season 4 of Batman Animated Series.
Yeah.
And part of it because when I say is it the new Batman Adventures or
new Batman Adventures? The new right. Adventures of Batman was the Adam West, Burt Ward 77. Yeah. So
and that's why I call it season 4, because I always get it sort of confused in my head.
Yeah. I mean, it's you just same words, you just switching two around. So
right.
So before we get into this episode, we're going to talk about this would be season 1, episode 19, Legends of the Dark Knight. This is one of my, and I'm glad you picked this is one of my favorite episodes from all of whatever you want to, Batman the Animated Series. That's what I just go with, all of it, whatever incarnation of it. It's kind of right up my alley. I like when they show different versions of Batman and things like that. But before we get into that, what's your thoughts on the difference in the aesthetic between Batman the Animated Series and this?
Well, you're used to 3 seasons of the other one, and when they came out with this one, it was actually, at first when I saw it, I wasn't sure why they did it, but listening to some of the interviews, I think Bruce Timm had said he had originally wanted something a little more like this rather than what we got with the first 3 seasons. Aesthetically, I thought there were some definite improvements, and then there were some things that I think suffered. I really liked the redesign of Bruce Wayne. He looked great, and I liked the Batman outfit. I like the black and gray. That looks cool.
Yes,
but I also like the black and gray with the yellow. I mean, technically he kind of looks blue, but as we know, those are in the first 3 seasons. It's supposed to be the sort of a blue lighting effect or a shadow on the black outfit. So exactly. The way I've always seen it is he's wearing black and gray, just one has the yellow oval and one doesn't. There are a couple other ones, like the Scarecrow's redesign for season 4 I thought was incredible. I thought it was so good that he should have had his own. That should have been a completely separate character. You could have called him the Hangman or something like that. He didn't really, scream, if you excuse the pun, Scarecrow to me, but he was so neat looking. But then you have the Joker, where they removed the red lipstick. They gave him the black eyes. That didn't work for me. Catwoman, Penguin, and Riddler. Penguin was okay. Penguin kind of went back to almost like the 1940s style. You know?
Exactly.
I liked that. Riddler was he only showed up like in one episode, brief little cameo, and Catwoman had almost like perma white on her jaw, like the area below her mask. It was kind of bizarre.
Yeah.
But and then of course you get Nightwing with the mullet, and that's inexcusable.
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't
it was
mind
the
long hair on
1990s. Yeah. So
yeah.
I get you though.
I
Yeah.
don't mind Nightwing with long hair, but a mullet, come on now.
Yeah.
It should
It
have.
was I liked it. I liked I guess like I thought Bruce Wayne looked better in this, incarnation than the previous. Not that it looked bad in the original Batman the Animated Series, but I just thought it was a little improvement. I did
Mhm.
I like the suit. I'm a non-yellow oval bat symbol on the chest fan.
Mhm.
So I
Gotcha.
like the big bat, across the chest. Um, I didn't mind the all black, you're just going straight up all black, because I prefer that.
Mhm.
But I'm like you when I'm watching the original, the original episodes, original three seasons. It's still he's the suit is supposed to be black. They just
Right.
really they emphasize the highlights that's always blue, which I
Right. The
think,
shadowing.
yeah, I think that that takes a little more time when you're animating this,
Mhm.
so I think the reason why we didn't have that in the second part is they kind of cut back on that, because
Right.
there is a little bit. I think the animation is better in the first three seasons. Just the
I
overall animations, is a
I
little
agree.
better. Yeah.
I agree. It seems to flow a little bit. It's a little
Yes.
the everything has sharp edges in
Mm-hmm.
season 4. It doesn't quite. And I'm talking about like on the characters and stuff. And I, it's not that I don't like it. It's just it's a contrast. The other thing I wanted to mention is with season 4, you don't have those really nice title cards that start each episode, like
Mm-hmm.
Christmas with the Joker, and it would have
Mm-hmm.
this like really creepy picture of him, like with a bag
Yeah.
of toys over his shoulder,
Yeah.
and those things were really neat. It was almost like you're about to see a theatrical production, which you
Mm-hmm.
are, but it's an animation. But and then
Yeah.
they just cut that out, and they just have the title going across the episode that's already in progress. Um, so that was an artistic choice that I missed, but as long as it had Batman, I enjoyed it
Yeah.
overall.
Yeah, there's some good stuff in this too.
Yeah. I mean,
Altogether. I
it's
mean,
really more nitpicks than any
oh,
complaints
absolutely.
that I have,
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have, yeah, absolutely. I'm with you on the Joker. I thought it was I preferred the previous version over
Hmm.
the updated. Uh, you know, I didn't get the
Right.
black eyes, and anything.
Yeah.
Whatever. I mean, I'm
Sure.
nitpicking. It's not like I'll go up. I'm not saying it
Yeah.
didn't. It's not so drastic or starting like in the Batman where he's got the dreadlocks and the big red eyes and he's barefoot. So
Yeah. It
it
did give
was,
him sort of the black eyes did give him kind of a lesser than human quality. And I don't know if
yeah,
that's what Bruce Timm was
maybe
trying to
so.
emphasize or
Yeah.
not. Maybe.
All right. So as I said, this is Legends of the Dark Knight from uh Batman. The new Batman Adventures slash Batman the Animated Series continuation, directed by Dan Reba, the great Andrea Romano. I got to interview her a few times. Andrea
Oh, lucky
Romano.
you.
Yeah. I asked her, it was for I was at Comic-Con, San Diego Comic-Con, and they were doing a presser for year one, the animated film, Batman Year
Okay.
One.
Yeah.
And I asked her, it had nothing to do with year one. I just asked her, I said, hey, I have a question with what was the that animated companion piece that came out? Gotham Knight.
Gotham Knight. Yeah.
It was a companion piece to the Dark Knight. And it's
Yeah.
supposed
That's
to kind
Gotham
of, yeah,
Knight.
is that what it was? Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And I said, why didn't why didn't Bale voice Batman
Hmm.
in this little anthology? And she was like, that's a good question. He was out of our price range. And so I said, well, he did voice he voiced the video game for Batman Begins, if you remember that. So
I do. I do.
I always found it odd that they either they if they didn't get Bale, they could have had an actor not tried to mimic Bale, but something closer to his voice than Kevin Conroy, because it's officially set in the Dark Knight trilogy continuity or timeline. So anyway, that's just a little. There's me going off on a tangent because I saw
Well,
mentioned Henry Romano.
I watched last night I watched the segment that is very similar to this episode with the three, or there's four kids in that one, because I wanted to discuss it just a tiny bit. So I watched that last night, and I was thinking about the Dark Knight trilogy as I was watching, and I was listening to like the musical cues, which were really reminiscent of Batman Begins and Dark Knight at the time, and it was interesting to go back because I hadn't seen it in a long time. And we can talk about that later, but there's three different versions of this story. But that's a great movie. I love that.
Let's see here. This episode was written by Bob Goodman. There you go. And Bruce Timm. And of course, music by Shirley Walker. And it's inspired by the works of Dick Sprang, Bill Finger, Frank Miller. And as I said previously, air date October 10th, 1998. What were you doing in 1998?
I was 23, and I was, let's see, I had stopped going to college. I eventually went back and finished my degree, but I was working full time. I was teaching Taekwondo classes. I was managing a little school. I wasn't the owner, but I was the manager. And so I would teach kids from like 4 to 6, and then I taught the adults from like 7 to 8. So that's what I was doing every night.
Okay.
What about you? Where were you at 23?
I wasn't 23, I don't think then.
Oh, I'm sorry.
1998. 1998.
My bad.
I'm thinking I was 30. Well, I'm about to turn 33 here because my birthday is October 19th. So when this came out, I was coaching. I was still I was, in single digits years experience coaching. Probably that was by year. That's probably year. That might have been my 10th year on it. My 10th year. Yeah, I think 10th or I'm thinking back. That's a long time ago. But yeah, I mean, and Batman on Film was only a few months old at that time, and then it was still Jett D60's Batman 5 page. So we're talking a year after Batman and Robin. And let's see, finish up with any credits I can get to. James Tucker, friend of this show, and the late great Darwin Cook both worked on this episode. I'm a big James Tucker fan. I always try to hit him up. Like for years, I used to say on Twitter, I just go, "You got to do Gotham by Gaslight as an animated film." And we're trying, and finally they did it. So.
That's a great one.
The boys cast, Kevin Conroy again is Batman. But what I liked about it with the two segments, I guess we can get to that when we get to who, because they had different voice actors, a couple different voice actors for Batman. So
right,
we'll get to that. So essentially, and it'd been a while since I watched this, and but when you mentioned discussing it, I knew the premise, and then when I think about this episode, it immediately takes me back to a comic book I had when I was a kid, and you mentioned it in some of your notes here as well. Is what's the title of it escapes me, but it's
the Batman Nobody Knows.
The Batman Nobody Knows, yes. And I had that when I was a kid, and it's Bruce Wayne taking these kids on a camping trip, and they get to talking about what Batman really is. They all have different perspectives and ideas, and interpretations of what Batman actually is, like he's a real bad, he's a vampire, all this. And then at the end, Bruce Wayne puts on the real Batman suit and he goes, something like, I think Batman looks like this. And they go, it doesn't look like anything like Batman. So
yeah, great.
It always, it was like a comic book story that stuck with me for a long time. So, and this is kind of clearly influenced it's a riff off of this. Wouldn't you say?
Well, I would say definitely. But what's interesting is Bruce Timm is adamant that he thought of this without any knowledge of that comic, and then everyone in production gave him the business about it, saying he's full of it. But he claims that when he was sitting around during the Batman Forever era, that he thought, about the stark contrasts between something like Adam West and The Dark Knight Returns, and how every Batman in between all of that is all legitimate, and it's all Batman, just a different, version. And it's all, each is important, and none is, it might be your favorite. Space Batman might be somebody's favorite. Dark Knight Returns Batman might be somebody's favorite, and that sort of thing. But yeah, there's it's hard to believe that Bruce Timm was unaware of this story. But
it had to be subconsciously aware of it.
Like maybe he read it and forgot about it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm not saying he's just completely, what he's saying is bullshit. But you've got to have it somewhere way in the back of your mind, somewhere.
Right.
Because that happens like in any type of art, there's you're influenced by something. There may be something. I mean, you're a musician. I mean, you hear things, right? Yeah, I'll
give you a perfect example. I came in with a chord progression to this producer one day, and I was like, "What do you think of this?" And I played it, and he goes, "Oh, Duran Duran's Hungry Like the Wolf. I love that one too."
Yeah.
So he's like, "Go back to the drawing board." I'm like, "Okay." Yeah. I didn't even realize that that's what I was playing.
Yeah. Absolutely. So in this story, we're not on a camping trip, but it's three little kids in Gotham. They're kind of like Batman super fans, right? Would you say that? Yeah,
absolutely.
And they're talking about what Batman is, and the whole thing is, he's supernatural, he's not human, and he's all this and that, and then there are two. Even though there are three kids, there are two versions. Two of them tell a story of what Batman is, and the first kid is saying, was it his uncle? My uncle knows Batman or saw Batman, and and he said, he's funny and all this, and they're and so he tells the story, and I loved it. It's because it's straight up Dick Sprang 1940s Batman, right?
Absolutely. Especially with the larger than life set pieces that he has, like the musical instruments, the piano, the shooting I guess a violin bow like it's an arrow to catch the Joker. I mean, there's so many over the top pieces. But yeah, according to, there are a couple comic books that references. I don't have them right in front of me, but you could see that in a lot of those old Dick Sprang works. And I love Dick Sprang's art. I mean, it was so detailed and just really it was just so cool. I mean, you can't say enough good things about Dick Sprang back in the day.
If you have listened to any of the podcast where Lee Bermejo has been a guest, Lee is a Dick Sprang super fan, and Dick Sprang had a huge influence on Lee, even though you wouldn't, think that, comparing Lee's version of Batman to what Dick Sprang. But yeah, he's a huge fan, and Dick Spring had a big influence on him. So shout out to Lee Bermejo.
Yeah, I've got a
Here,
Dick Sprang poster on the wall, a big poster called "Riders on the Storm," I believe, and it's got Batman and Robin, and they're swinging, catching the Joker, Two-Face, and
yeah,
Penguin in the act.
I've got. You probably may have seen this. This was a. I think it was Lee does a lot of covers, comic book covers for DC, and there was one. I think it was for Detective, but it was it's kind of like a collage of
I know which one you're
different
talking
versions
about.
of Batman.
It was a
And
recent one, right?
yes, it's not too long ago. And you've got, of course, you have, Lee's version is a gargoyle,
hmm
typical, Lee Bermejo style Batman. And then you have different versions. You have, there's a Dick Sprang version up at
Right.
toward the center top as
Yeah,
well. So it
that's a
shows,
great cover.
yeah, because that's I think that's what started. I asked him about that cover, and he said, and he went into the whole thing about how much of a big fan he was with Dick Sprang. Anyway, so
Yeah.
also I like this is that Gary Owens voices the '50s Batman, and he was, if you remember Blue Falcon and Space Ghost, he was the voice for those characters back in the day. So
Oh yeah.
I enjoyed that because I remember watching Blue Falcon and Space Ghost when I was a kid. So
Yeah, me too.
and yeah, and Michael McKean, who to some
Yeah.
people he is Lenny from Lenny and Squiggy on Laverne and Shirley, but also this is Spinal Tap. I'm a Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul super fan, so
Yes, sir.
he is to me, not only is he Lenny, but he is also Saul Goodman's or brother
Yeah. I
in that
was I
episode. Yeah,
was I was surprised to find out he was the Joker in this, and he does a great job. I
yeah.
couldn't tell it was him by his voice. I'm a huge fan of this guy, and I like the movies he's in that are directed by Christopher Guest too, like Best in
Mm-hmm.
Show. And have you seen those movies?
Yes. Yeah.
You've seen Best in Show if you're a dog
Mm-hmm.
person. I mean,
Yeah.
there are a couple of other ones, Waiting for Guffman, The Mighty Wind, those sorts of things. He's great. He's just great comedic presence in anything he does.
Yeah. He's great in Better Call Saul.
Oh yeah, he
And
makes you think he's got that weird affliction that seems to be
yeah,
all in his head.
he is like he has it's electricity. He can't be
Right,
around electricity. And
right.
like he's just like this brilliant lawyer,
hmm
senior member of this law firm,
hmm
and he lives in a mansion that's basically had electricity's turned off, and he's has kerosene lamps, like camping lamps and things that light the house. And I'm not going to
Sleep.
get into a Better Call Saul tangent
Right.
here, but he has his story is
Yeah.
tragic. I'll put it that way. If you haven't watched Better Call Saul, then I'll won't spoil it for you. So
Oh,
anyway,
I've
yeah,
seen it all. That's for
yeah.
sure.
Brienne Brosey is the '50s Robin, and I love this. I mean, this is so much of a 1940s, early '50s Batman story. It also reminds me of Michael Uslan once told me, I've asked him about, what era of Batman comics would you associate with those first four films? And he said, Batman Forever, speaking of, Batman Forever was very much a '40s, early '50s, and this stuck with me. And I saw this, it reminded me. He goes, Batman and Robin running over the keys of a giant piano, things like that. And this is actually in this episode. All right, we're going to stop just for a moment on this episode of BOF's Batmanimation podcast, discussing the episode Legends of the Dark Knight for these words from our sponsors. I mean, it's a simple story. Is the Joker's on this heist? He's in some kind of, where is he actually? Because it's a museum. Because
Yeah, I would say
it's like oversized instruments, right?
right. He's
And
trying to steal the Pagliacci
yeah,
original musical piece. But if you
yes,
notice, he gets the keys, walks up to the thing, but he breaks the glass with the priceless Stradivarius instead of using
yeah,
the keys, which he just
yeah,
mentions. That's the funniest bit in that whole deal, in my
yeah.
opinion.
And so, Batman and Robin show up, and it's very, if you know the voice of of Space Ghost and Blue Falcon, just
Mm-hmm.
the cadence and how he delivers lines, it's very, it's very that, right?
It's very,
And
very robust.
yes,
Very.
very, yes,
He gets
very,
very deep, and
yes. And
Robin,
yeah,
Joker, you're not going
Robin,
to get away.
exactly. It's what you would imagine how Batman would have talked back then,
Right.
and
Very
that's,
swashbuckling, you know what I mean?
yes, exactly. And it's the Joker making puns all the, left and right, Robin making puns, and it's really, that's all there is to it. Batman and Robin end up foiling the Joker's plans, and save the day. And it's just so much very lighthearted, to use your word, swashbuckling 40s Batman comics kind of story you would have read back then.
Absolutely. It's almost like what if Dick Sprang got his own animated series,
Yes, yeah.
and it looked just like I mean, it's spitting image.
I would almost, you mentioned something like that, it would be, I know the cost would probably be prohibited, but it would be like if you had like a animated Batman series, which was an anthology, and there were just, each episode was like a different era,
Ooh. Oh, you're on to
version.
something there.
I
That's a
mean, you,
great idea.
yeah,
Okay,
different
note
versions
to
of
W.
Batman, different incarnations of Batman. I think it would be
Note,
great.
note to self.
Yeah.
What's great is that James Tucker took that Joker um, style and
Mm-hmm.
used that for Brave and the Bold. So you can see,
Almost exactly,
yeah,
because
you can
it's Dick
see
Sprang. Yeah.
this. He was probably had ideas like that in his mind back then, being
Mm-hmm.
able to use that and kind of go from there
Because yeah,
for that series.
we've seen glimpses of, you know uh in this episode, to be honest, and even in with Brave and the Bold, you see a little bit. There's different there's episodes where they featured different versions of Batman, kind of. So it's I just think it would be, it would be cool to have some kind of anthology like that. But I'm not in that business. I don't know. I don't know what the cost is, to have such a drastic change of
Well, they could be shorts.
aesthetic. Yeah,
You remember
yeah,
those little shorts they used to put on the DVD releases? Like Catwoman would have like a 7-minute
yes,
episode. I think there was
yes.
a Spectre, which was
Oh,
really
that
good.
Spectre one was great. Yeah,
Yeah, fantastic.
I love
Okay,
those things. Yeah, I've gone up and down another
I'm sorry.
tangent. So
The tangent
no,
route.
that's so. Um, it was a very, a little cool short episode. With this, the kid saying this, what this Batman was, and then the next one is like the 180, the
Right,
complete 180-degree flip of what
right,
Batman, and it's the girl who ironically looks just like Carrie Kelly, who's part
right.
of this Batman super group. And she's saying, "Oh, you got it all wrong. Batman's like 50. He's old. He's like 50, and Robin's a girl." And
Hmm.
so it's a whole 100% nod, homage, and like straight out of Dark Knight Returns. The little episode. It's the whole mutant scene. So,
Oh yeah,
and I loved Michael Ironside voices Batman,
and
and
he's so good.
it
He is
is
so
good.
good in
Yes,
this.
yes.
I would
It.
I want to
fits
see a
that.
whole
Yeah.
film, the whole
It's
film done exactly like that. I mean, I know we already have that other film, the
mhm.
two-parter, but this one is just, I want more of this too. I'm selfish in that regard.
The the animation is very, I mean, they're because you're riffing off of Frank Miller,
Hmm.
in this, and so is the animated film. I think this hit it more on the nose than even the animated film did, as
You
far
know,
as going with the Frank Miller art vibe.
I can't argue that point. I think you were right on the money, and every aspect really for me. I love the music. Of course, I love the heavy electric
Mm-hmm.
guitars, and that just it spoke to that version in that era of 1986. Uh, this screams that, and this is the first animated incarnation of the Dark Knight Returns, as far as I can
Mm-hmm.
tell. I don't know of
Yes,
any other one
absolutely.
before that.
Yeah. Yes.
Um,
Andy
Fantastic.
McAfee voices the Carrie Kelly
Mhm.
Robin in this segment, and I mean, there's nothing really I can for describing it. It's just Batman going after the mutant scene when he takes down the mutant leader, and that's
Yeah.
what it is. It's
Yeah.
got the huge the Batmobile tank, you know,
Right.
which reminds me that's this what's he say in the book? Like Dick called it the Batmobile, something a kid would say,
Exactly.
yeah,
Kids these days, no respect.
yeah. And I love the whole
And
yeah,
the rubber bullets too.
yes,
Very
rubber bullets.
love
I
that.
like I like this is an operating table and I'm a surgeon, that
Hmm.
it's great. So
When he comes out of the mud and he's just smiling
yeah,
before he even attacks, he's just like,
yes.
okay, I took what you got. Now I'm gonna let my turn.
I I
Oh, so good.
I thought Peter Weller voicing Batman in that film animated film was great
Hmm.
casting. This one just it hit it a little bit more at home for me. Not to take away anything from Peter Weller because I think he's
No.
excellent. It's just
Yep.
it was it fit. They both fit. I mean, so
I
but it
think I
was
think you I
yeah.
think you're right. For the version Peter Weller was in, he was perfect for that. For
Mm-hmm.
this version, Michael Ironside is perfect in this. And I I'm not going to say I prefer one over the other, but I do want to see more of this Michael Ironside version.
Yeah.
I've been a fan of his since like Scanners from back in the
Yeah.
early '80s.
Yeah.
Um, and he's always playing the villain, but it's cool to see him play Batman, play the hero.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, except for something like Top Gun, where he's not really he's just one of the instructors, but
Yeah.
he's had a long career. Big fan of
Yes.
his.
It is so when you compare the two, it really, and I think I read something, it was in your notes, but when I was doing some research on this as well, was it I guess it was Bruce Timm talking about really wanting to show the two how different Batman
Yeah, the
is, and this is
extremes, the
yeah,
extremes.
and very extreme because they are extremes, right?
Exactly. You've got the as lighthearted as you can get
Mm-hmm.
with the first segment, and then this is at the time, the darkest
The
version of
darkest,
Batman,
yes,
I guess.
yeah,
And
yes,
they may have gone darker since, but can't beat the best. Dark Knight Returns. I
yeah,
don't think anyone's going to argue. Oh, by the way, I wanted to mention that this is Kevin Michael Richardson. This is his first animated work with DC. Uh,
okay.
who
The
he played
Joker
the
from
mutant
yeah,
leader,
okay,
and then he went on to do the Joker. And I
in the
was looking that
Batman,
up. I needed to be careful what I said, but I went back and looked at all of his IMDb to make sure. So
he's done a
he's got
lot
a
of yeah, he's done a
long
lot
history
with
with DC after that.
yeah. Um, I would be remiss before we get to this, the third final segment. There is a Joel Schumacher cameo of sorts in
Yes,
between
sir.
the two, the two retellings by the kids. Did you I've seen some people talk about it sometimes, saying this was taking a shot at Joel Schumacher. Did you take it that way?
Well, the character's name is Joel, so
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily call it a shot. I think it was more an homage. I don't think it was. I mean, he even says the term, "I hear the Batmobile can drive up walls," which
Yeah.
was in Batman Forever.
Yes.
I didn't see it as they were trying to make fun of him per
I
se.
didn't either. I didn't either. So I wondered, maybe I just needed, I'm not getting it, because I thought it was just a respectful nod to Joel Schumacher, because like he is he's a window dresser at a store, which
Mhm.
is that's Joel Schumacher. That's how he started. Like, was his first career, he was like a window dresser at some
I didn't know
big,
that.
yeah, he was like some big time, like a Macy's in New York City.
Okay.
That kind of deal. That's way back in the day. And the store's name is Shoemakers,
Right.
which is,
I forgot that.
yeah,
That's great.
close enough to
Yeah.
Schumacher.
Mhm.
And he does mention, about Batman, and he also said, doesn't he say something about black armor or blacks, the
Black
suit,
leather, yeah.
like, yeah,
Black
yeah,
or something, or skin tight
yeah.
black outfit. And
So yes,
he's he's very
yeah,
he's very theatrical in his
yes,
his delivery. And
yeah,
that's all I'll say about that.
yeah. So yeah, I took it. I never got why people thought they were dissing on Joel Schumacher there. I thought it was just a cool little
I
kind
think
of
they
sort
they
cameo.
they
Yeah,
they still had the bad taste of this is 1 year removed from Batman and Robin. So they
yeah,
still had the bad taste of Batman and Robin in their mouths, and that's probably what they're
true.
referring to.
Well, the episode ends with the three kids. They follow Batman into some, like, an abandoned theater, and it ends up being, it was Firefly, and
Right.
Firefly's in there doing Firefly things. And you know what happens when Firefly's around? There's a fire. So the theater catches on fire. Batman does show up, and I liked it because we hear Kevin Conroy, and it's Batman, and he says stuff, but it's from the kid's point of view. Did you feel it was that way as well? We're seeing this Batman from their through their eyes.
Right. And if you watch closely, he does a little bit of both of their stories. He throws a pun in there. He puts out Firefly's fire gun and says, "Sorry
Mhm.
to put you out." Straight pun from the 40s version. And
Yeah,
then all of his, brutal violence, punching him, knocking him out, that's going to be, it seems geared a little more towards the Dark Knight Returns. So
yeah,
you kind of get a mixing of both. And the kids end up still arguing that they're all correct in their own view.
yeah.
See, he was this way. No, he was this way. Oh, you're crazy. I saw some fangs. I saw some teeth, claws, or whatever. So even though they see the real Batman, they still have their own version in their head that they believe. I thought that was cool.
And it does kind of play into, like, kind of like one of the characterizations of Batman a lot of times is that, the urban myth thing, and he's this, he's that, and even if you see him, you
Mhm.
still it's still, your view of what he is still distorted, because they, like you said, at the end, that's how it ends. They walk off and they're still arguing about what Batman really is, even after seeing him. So I
Right.
really, I really like this episode a lot, and I love to be able to talk about it here on this show. So what was before we start wrapping up here, any final thoughts, any anecdotes, any bits of trivia, anything you want to mention
Well,
about Legends of the Dark Knight?
sure. Well, as we spoke of in the beginning, there's three different versions of this story. They have the one that you mentioned in
Mm-hmm.
Batman number 250, which is a great number because, as we know, number 251 with the Joker comes right after that. with the kids going camping. And then, and chronologically, that would be the first. And then we have this one. See, that one was 1973. This one we have 1998, this episode. And then was it 2008, I believe, Batman Gotham Knight came out, where you have same type of segment for kids at a skate park. And, they're all telling their same stories.
Yes. Yep.
One
Absolutely.
of them is one thinks he's a vampire, one thinks he's sort of like Man Bat, or no, Shadow Batman, Man Bat, and a kind of robot Batman. And they have a character in that one that is he's not called Firefly, but he's dressed similarly, and he's doing the exact same thing, flying around with a jetpack. So I'm thinking that they used that. We're influenced by this episode.
Sure.
Yeah, it's a great story. I love, you mentioned getting the perspectives of different characters, telling their own version of what Batman is and what he means to those kids. And that's always good. It kind of reminds me of, there are other stories that do that in comic bookdom, like there was the Marvels painted Alex Ross series, where it's all told from, I think, an older gentleman's point of view. But I love when they will turn the perspective on any of these characters in any stories. It always makes for fascinating, interesting, and very memorable episodes or comic books, depending on where it's released. But this is a top 10 in my book episode.
Yeah.
In all Batman, I'm putting this one in all versions of Batman series, not just Batman animated series. This goes in my top 10.
I would be there with you. I think so. You take all the animated series and say, okay, pick top 10 episodes of all. I mean, it's tough to do.
Absolutely.
I would have to include this one. I also get a little, I think there's a little bit of, and maybe this is what Bruce Timm was going for, was like, you could say, you could get 10 Batman fans, and you could ask each one, what's Batman to you? And you probably get 10 different answers.
Sure.
Absolutely. Some people, it would be, they want, Batman with a blue cape and cowl, and in the top, I mean, all kind of different. and they're, when I think of, like, I kind of have a bit about Blue Batman. I kind of, it's ongoing.
Yeah, you gave me the business about buying that McFarlane figure. You were like, blue is dark and brooding, and and then
I was looking on Amazon this weekend, this weekend, and I was looking for that McFarlane Batman Hush figure, the one it's black, and you can't find that anywhere to buy unless you get it, for a jacked up price on eBay. But you can find some of the blue ones out there at a regular price. And I'm like, see, people like black Batman better than blue Batman. So anyway, lost my train of thought there. So, but anyway, it's, Batman, people discuss Batman. We can argue and debate about, what's Batman and what works and what's this, and this is dumb and this is awesome. But at the end of the day, they're all valid interpretations of Batman. I'm not a Batman Returns fan, but I can't say that's not a valid interpretation of Batman.
Right.
It's just didn't jive with my Batman sensibilities. Doesn't mean it doesn't jive with someone else's. So this kind of, to me, this episode kind of hits on that. And always, even though I tongue in cheek, playfully, sometimes it doesn't come across when you're typing something out, how you, inflection, but I do try to be, respectful of other people's, what Batman is to them. So anyway, they reminded me of that. And I think the only thing I would mention is I read it when I was looking up research. and I remember I thought there were 3 segments, 3 different versions, but I was probably remembering the comic books, or whatever. And I think did Bruce Timm say that they wanted to do another one,
Correct.
another
They wanted to
incarnation of
do
Batman in it,
They
but
wanted
it
to do a
didn't just pan
Neil
out.
Adams,
Okay.
segment,
Yeah.
but the animation would have been too difficult for what they needed to do, that realistic
Okay.
animation.
Yeah.
So instead, they have the first kid just say he's a big beast, where they don't do a flashback or to his imagination, whatever you want to call it. So he's just saying he's a big beast and that sort of thing. So yeah, I had the same thought. When I'm getting in, I was like, I thought that was a 3rd episode, but I guess the 3rd is the fighting of Firefly.
Sure.
I will say, while you're on this, something I did want to point out is I really enjoy and appreciate the kids' dialogue in this episode. I'm a big fan of writers who know how to write children where they speak like kids speak and don't speak like overly intelligent, worldly, or wiser than adult characters, which has been a trend as long as I can remember. And it's so unrealistic and unconvincing. And so these kids just seem like typical kids. And so I can appreciate the writing there.
That's a great point. You mentioned that they do. They're talking like kids talk. I know how kids talk. I'm an expert.
Exactly.
Trust me. I've been around it for 30 plus years. And
they're full of crap, right? All kids are full of crap. And they don't know how to articulate like adults do. So, when you get these productions, these movies and TV shows that make them out to be the smartest people in the room, I'm like, don't give me that shit.
Yeah. So this worked for me. I agree with you that, if I had to do a top 10, this would be in it. And I like to see more of this kind of stuff in animation somehow, somewhere, somehow. I know we got Batman Cape Crusader coming, but a perfect example of what I'm talking about here is like, and you mentioned like the DC Showcase stuff. I'm with, that too. You remember that, and this is Bruce Timm did that. And it's the Cape Crusader remind me of this. Bruce Timm did that short. I think it's for Batman's 70th anniversary few years ago. And it was kind of a monster, Batman and the Monster Man take.
It was black and white, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Fantastic.
Very 1939-ish Batman looking Batman. And give me some stuff like that, different period stuff, whatever. So I would love to see more like that.
I think every time they do a little segment like that, that's what gets the wheels in motion for something like Cape Crusader.
Yeah.
I mean, that seems to be where he's going, because it looks more like, at least with the design that we've seen in Batman.
Oh, it looks quite a bit
more like 39, right?
Yeah.
With the big 100%. Ears and stuff.
Yeah.
And
man, I'm looking forward to that. I can't, I don't know how the strike and stuff affects animation, but I'm sure it does, because you still have writers and voice actors and whatnot. But come on, let's get this thing. I'm ready. I'm ready to see it. Yeah.
Y'all need to negotiate and come to an agreement. You can always strike later if you don't get exactly what you want today. Just get a little something. It's kind of like going to court. Every time you go to court, you're going to win a little something, you're going to lose a little something.
Yeah.
At least that's what I learned when I was working as a paralegal for a while.
Yep. All right, then we'll get on out of here. Unless you have anything. I know I jumped in, and because I have my scatterbrained mind, because especially when we talk about this kind of stuff, a lot of historical Batman things, that it reminds me of other things. Anything else that you want to mention? If not, we will move on out of here.
Well, I don't want to get off on another tangent, but you did mention how all these different versions of Batman are valid. And this episode makes me think of all the different versions of Batman I like. It's varied. I mean, everything from Adam West to Dark Knight Returns to Neil Adams to you name it. I mean, just it's all over the spectrum. And they're all important and significant, and I can't fault anybody for liking a version that I don't care for, or vice. I would appreciate if they didn't do the same to me, or it gave me the same, or my opinions and everything all the same respect. But I think we all do that, right? I don't think I ever you've ever shit on anyone for, liking Batman and Robin. That may have been the first Batman movie they ever saw as a kid.
Yeah. Yeah. Look,
might be their
my
favorite.
my son Micah
So anyway, I
likes Batman and Robin. And that's like one of that and Batman Forever, the first movies, my kids watched in live action Batman. So
it's all valid,
Yeah.
It depends on the eye of the beholder, right? Whoever's got the viewpoint.
Yeah. Exactly. All right. So Patrick, I'm Bill. Announcer Rachel will finish up here. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks for listening to BATMANIMATION, a BatmanOnFilm.com podcast revisiting the animated TV and film adventures of the Caped Crusader. Follow BATMANIMATION on Twitter @BatManimation. Follow BOF on Twitter @TheBatmanOnFilm. Follow Jett on Twitter @BatmanOnFilm. For Jett and Team BOF, I'm announcer Rachel. Batman on Film, authoritative, definitive, the original, established in 1998.